Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Guys That Matter. This is Hunter and Shane. Say what up, Shane.
What up, nerds?
We are back, this time taking a look at a bigger upgrade from one of the Precon decks of the Lost Caverns of Ixalan. This time taking a look at the fish deck, the Merfolk deck. That's right, Explorers of the Deep. Shane, this is a sequel to your $100 upgrade of the exact same deck. So if you guys haven't already seen that video, go check the description before watching this video so you can be caught up from all the brand new additions we're adding into this $300 video. But before we get started into all the additions, let's go ahead and remind the people what your face commander is and what the deck is trying to do.
The face commander is Hakbal of the Surging Soul. It's 2, a green and a blue, for a 3/3 Merfolk Scout. At the beginning of combat on your turn, each Merfolk creature you control explores. And it also says, whenever Hakbal attacks, you may put a land from your hand onto the battlefield. If you don't, draw a card. From the $100 upgrade, this commander was nuts, dude. He draws you a ton of cards. You can put a bunch of 1/1 counters on all your Merfolk. You go really wide. This is an overall, in my opinion, all-star of a commander.
Yeah, the value here is off the charts. Getting that combat for every single merfolk you have gets to explore gets out of hand so quickly. This deck is super mean. So let's go ahead and jump straight into the additions. I'm excited to see what you've added into this 300 upgrade. But before we do, I just want to remind everybody this is a sequel, so everything on the screen right now is from your $100 list that you are keeping in this deck, correct?
That is correct. I liked those additions. I'm bringing them over, and now we're just going to be adding some more spice to it.
Okay, talk to me about some of that spice. Let's start it off with some of the new creatures going into the deck.
The first creature I wanted added in here, Alondris, the Sky Dreamer, 2 and 2 blue for a 2/4 Merfolk Wizard. It says whenever you draw your second card each turn, create a 2/2 blue Drake creature token with flying. It also says whenever you draw your fifth card each turn, Alondra and the Drakes you control get +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of cards in your hand. Like I alluded to, this deck draws a ton of cards. There's merfolks that draw you cards when they attack. There are cards that say when a creature with a +1/+1 attacks, you draw a card. It's tons of card draw, dude.
Yeah, plus the explore mechanic. If it's a land on top, that card goes in your hand. So technically, you're going to be
Mm,
having that giant hand size, which gives you +X/+X.
yeah, unfortunately, Hackball won't be counting towards the cards you're drawing, but he will be just stacking your hand, like you said, tons of cards. You just have a grip of cards in your hand.
Yeah, that X+X, I can see is going to potentially happen, and it's going to be a pretty big finisher.
The next creature I wanted to add in here, Empress Galena, 3 and 2 blue for a 1/3 Merfolk Noble. It says pay 2 blue, tap it, gain control of target legendary permanent. This is just a really mean Merfolk that can now steal your opponent's commanders. I thought this was just an awesome ad that could just add some frustration to your opponents. Like I love this card.
Yeah, and that caveat of it not saying until end of turn
Yep,
is
you just get it.
crazy.
You just get it.
You just get it forever, rest of the game until you deal something with it, or if, like you said, if it was their commander, then until they kill their own commander to get it back in
Yeah,
the command zone.
yeah, really strong creature here. And then the last creature I wanted to add in this new upgrade, Thrasios, Triton Hero. It's a green and a blue for a 1/3 Merfolk Wizard. It says you could pay 4, scry 1, then reveal the top card of your library. If it's a land card, put it into the battlefield tapped. Otherwise, draw a card. They have a partner, but that doesn't really matter for you here. This card is amazing for you because it is cost 4, but while you're doing your explore mechanic, if you do see something you want there, and instead of just having to keep it there, look at it, keep it there every time, you can now at instant speed draw that card if it's not a land. This is an amazing card for you.
Yeah, it goes really well. Who would have thought Thrasios, the Merfolk, that's really good in EDH, fits really well in this Merfolk deck.
Yeah, and after playing the 100, a really big thing that I found was any kind of instant speed draw is amazing for you because you'll do your explore, you might put it back and you're like, you know what? Let's just draw that and keep exploring.
Exactly. Well, I'm very excited to see all these creatures in the deck, but also terrified. Talk to me about some of the enchantments that you're also adding in.
So after playing with this deck, I definitely found that the commander can get you so many land cards that I really wanted to add more things to do with lands. So the first thing I wanted to add in is Burgeoning, 1 green mana for an enchantment. It says whenever an opponent plays a land, you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. Straightforward. All those lands that he's going to be getting you. Now, whenever your opponent plays one, you can dump another one. Like, the commander already ramped so quickly, and now this is just another way to ramp even faster. This card's fantastic in the list. Same thing goes for the next card I'm adding in, Exploration. 1 green mana for an enchantment. It says you may play an additional land on each of your turns. Another great way to just start dumping the lands you have. You'll be drawing a bunch. Now you're playing at least 2. And that's even not talking about the land you could play from Hakbal. Like, you're going to get out of hand.
Yeah, man, Burgeoning and Exploration are really good in this deck. Coming down early if you can get them in your opening hand for 1 mana, and then just continuously ramping once you start exploring is absolutely insane.
Yeah, 2 great options to throw in the list.
Who would have thought a name Exploration works with Exploring?
It's wild, right? It's almost like they planned that. The last enchantment I wanted to throw in here is just kind of like a great card just that deals with counters. I'm sure everyone's seen it. Doubling Season, 4 and a green enchantment. If an effect would create 1 or more tokens under your control, it creates twice as many of those tokens instead. And it also says if an effect would put 1 or more counters on a permanent you control, it puts twice as many of those counters on the permanent instead. We do have some ways to make tokens, but that bottom part is going to be insane for the deck, especially with your commander. Every time you explore, you're going to be putting double the amount of counters on your creatures. This will just get out of hand. I'm sure you can tell. All-star, anything that matters with counters, put it in.
The counter thing with exploring, the token thing with, like you said, that you have a couple of ways to make merfolk tokens. I've seen the 1/1s go off. I mean, in the 100 upgrade, you added an enchantment that also makes 1/1 tokens every time you cast a
Yeah.
merfolk. So double those up, getting a bunch of little hexproof guys. Wild. Let's move on to your artifact package. What are these?
Like I said, with some of the creatures, I really wanted to get more ways to draw at instant speed while I'm exploring. And the 2 ways I saw were these 2 artifacts. The first one I'm putting in is Temple Bell for 3 mana. It's an artifact. You just tap it, each player draws a card. This one you do have to be cautious because obviously you're giving every player a card. That's not nothing, but the ability that you can draw while you're exploring, that can just win you the game right there. Maybe you have like another way to you see something on top, you want it in your hand right away. I love this card. I don't think it's as bad of a downside to give everyone a card, but use it wisely. And also the One Ring. It's 4 generic mana, legendary artifact. It has indestructible. When the One Ring enters the battlefield, if you cast it, it gains protection from everything until your next turn. At the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life for each burden counter on the One Ring. You can tap it, put a burden counter on the One Ring, then draw a card for each burden counter on the One Ring. This might be a little weird to add a Lord of the Rings card in your deck, but the ability to draw cards, like I said, at instant speed while you're exploring, I love this card, and I'm gonna throw it in my deck.
Like we've said multiple times in multiple videos, card draw wins games. So, especially when it comes to this deck where you can just find something you really want to draw right then and there, boom, draw it, play it, win.
Yep, big fan of these.
I know we saw a little bit of protection from the last video, but I think we're adding in one more piece.
We are. I love this card. Fierce Guardianship, 2 in the blue, instant. If you control a commander, you can cast a spell without paying its mana cost. Counter target non-creature spell. Just a great way to protect your board, stop board wipes from happening, any kind of removal. This is just great in your go wide strategy. So I love this card.
Yeah, like you just said it yourself, man. Go red strategies always tend to get a little bit of more removal towards that. So you don't want that to happen. Fierce Guardianship is a fantastic counter. Finally, are we touching the land base?
We are. I want to add 2 more really strong cards, in my opinion. The first of which, Cavern Souls. It's in the main set coming out. It's a land. As Cavern Souls enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. It taps for a colorless. You can also tap it, add 1 mana of any color. Spend this mana only to cast creature spells of the chosen type, and that spell can't be countered. So any kind of kindred deck you're playing, you're going to want to throw something like this in. You just got to name Merfolk, and now all your Merfolk are uncounterable. I think that's a very strong ability. The last land I wanted to add was Cephalid Coliseum. It's a land that says it can tap, add a blue to your mana pool. Cephalid Coliseum deals 1 damage to you. It also has Threshold. For a blue, tap it, sacrifice Cephalid Coliseum. Target player draws 3 cards, then discards 3 cards. This is another great way to just get some card draw at instant speed. And like I said, I'm trying to get as much card draw at instant speed as I can in this $300 upgrade. Just noticing while I played the $100 list, it's such a benefit to be able to draw something while you're exploring. This is a great land.
Two fantastic lands to go into the deck. Cavern of Souls, Cephalid Coliseum. I can see why you're adding them here. Easy includes. But is that it? Is that all the additions?
Those are my $300 additions. I'm liking it a lot, and that's the list.
I am liking it as well. That list is starting to look pretty scary. But as the list goes on, it's time to remove some cards to make room for these new ones. So let's go ahead and get to it. Let's talk about the cuts. But once again, this is a sequel. So all the cards that you see on the screen right now are from the cuts of the $100 list, and you are not touching those, right?
Correct. Those were cut from the 100. I still agree with the cuts from the 100. We're carrying over those cuts to the 300 as well, and then we're going to cut some more.
All right. We'll cut some more. We will. Let's kick it off with these $300 cuts.
So I added 3 creatures. I'm going to be cutting a little bit of the creature package here. Not too many, but we're going to make some room. The first one being Cold-Eyed Selkie. It's a hybrid green-blue for a 1/1 Merfolk Rogue that has Island Walk. It says whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you may draw that many cards. This is a pretty strong card. It has a lot of good card draw, but the amount of card draw in this deck is insane. So I don't feel too bad getting this card out of here. The next one I'm cutting is Kopala, Warden of the Waves. 1 and 2 blue for a 2/2 Merfolk Wizard. Spells your opponent cast the target Merfolk you control. Cost 2 more to cast. Abilities your opponents activate the target Merfolk you control. Cost 2 more to activate. Basically, the Ward 2. Not horrible, but it's not that impactful. You can still get your things removed fairly easy. I wasn't too impressed with this card, so I got it out of there. Another Merfolk I'm cutting is Merfolk Cave Diver. 2 and a blue for a 2/4 Merfolk Scout. Whenever a creature you control explores, Merfolk Cave Diver gets a +1/+0 until end of turn, and it can't be blocked this turn. Now that's cool if I'm making something really big, like one thing really big, but this deck is going wider rather than taller. So I don't really think that this one card getting unblockable and big is all that impactful when I'm going to be having a huge just board of Merfolk. So I wasn't too stoked on this card either. Another one I'm going to cut is Sage of Fables. 2 and a blue for a 2/2 Merfolk Wizard. Each other wizard creature you control enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. You get pay to remove a +1/+1 counter from a creature you control, draw a card. There aren't a ton of wizards. There are, a good amount, but it wasn't that impactful in the games that I played, so I just didn't think I really needed it. Another big card I'm getting out of there, Tishana, Voice of Thunder. 5, a green and a blue, for a Star Morfolk Shaman. Tishana's power and toughness is equal to the number of cards in your hand. You have no max hand size, and when Tishana enters the battlefield, draw a card for each creature you control. This seems like a really good card on paper, I'm not going to lie. It's the fact that it's so heavy is the reason why I'm getting it out of there. That and the next card I'm cutting is just, I'm cutting a little bit of the top end. It kind of feels like a win more card as well, in my opinion. You play this card after you've already got the engine kind of going, so you're hoping that you're already in a commanding position with this card. But if something were to happen and your engine's offline, this is just a big, heavy card that could get on the field for maybe a 1/1 or 2/2. So I'm not the hugest fan of this card. The last creature I'm going to be cutting is Exola Toyak, the Smiling Flood. 4, a green and a blue for a 6/6 Salamander Serpent. Says when it enters the battlefield or attacks, put a flood counter on target land. That land is an island in addition to its other types. For as long as the flood counter is on it, at the beginning of your end step, untap each permanent you control with a counter on it. Super cute card. Could be a commander all on its own, obviously. This card just really doesn't do what your deck's trying to do. I get that it can untap all your things with counters on it. I guess it can also open up Island Walk, but I don't know. I think that this card would be better in a completely different deck, maybe at the helm. So I cut it out of mine.
Yeah, it makes sense. You're getting rid of the top end there. You don't really need the top end creatures because you're just going so crazy with exploring. But these cuts make sense.
Yeah, we're really just trying to, hone in on the deck and what it wants to do. Just kind of narrow it down into one super tight idea.
Honing in, we shall. Let's go and move on to the enchantment package to make room for those other enchantments that you added.
Since I did add 3 more enchantments for this $300, the enchantment section of this deck was getting pretty heavy. Not only from mana cost, but also just the amount of enchantments. And at a certain point, you don't want too many enchantments in the deck. So I had to make some cuts. The first being Reflections of Letjara, 4 and a blue for an enchantment. As it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Whenever you cast a spell of the chosen type, copy that spell. Very strong ability. I completely understand. One of the main reasons for this is just the fact that it costs 5. When you're playing this tempo-wise, you're taking a turn off. So either you're stopping what you're doing or you're just having nothing on the board. But 5 mana just to do this one card Kind of sucks. I get that after this, it's going to be very beneficial, but it's just pretty heavy for me and a little slow. We're also adding another 5 mana cost, so, you just can't be adding so many heavy enchantments. It's just going to get ridiculous. Another enchantment I'll be cutting is Simic Ascendancy. A green and a blue for an enchantment. You can pay 1, a green and a blue, put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control. Whenever 1 or more +1/+1 counters are put on a creature you control, put that many growth counters on Simic Ascendancy at the beginning of your upkeep. If Simic Ascendancy has 20 or more growth counters on it, you win the game. Very cute. Don't think that I hate this card because I actually do like this card. It's just kind of a little gimmicky in my opinion, and it'll always be you're sitting at maybe 18, 19, and guess what? That's when the removal for this card comes out. So it's really hard to win a strategy like this. And I mean, if you like it, keep it in the deck. It's a fun card. You'll have maybe some epic games, but for me and consistency wise, I got it out of there.
I was gonna say the same thing about this card. I feel like every time I've ever tried to play this card, I mean, you kind of want this card with a proliferate strategy. I feel like it's where it shines the most. That's not what this deck wants to do. But it always eats removal. It's someone sees the words "you win the game" on a card, that's getting removed pretty
Yeah.
quickly.
Yeah, they don't like that. And what they'll do is they'll give you that hope, right? They'll let it sit around for a while, and then nope, just kidding, it's dead.
Exactly. Well, we did see the one protection spell in the form of Fierce Guardianship. Are we removing any spells to make room for that one?
We are. I'm gonna cut a sorcery though. Bygone Marvels, 2 green mana for sorcery. Got Descend 8. When you cast this spell, if there are 8 or more permanent cards in your graveyard, copy this spell twice. You may choose new targets for the copies. It also says return target permanent from your graveyard to your hand, exile Bygone Marvels. It's just a little slow in my opinion, honestly. It's just you're getting cards back to your hand. I completely understand that, but we don't really need unless it's like you're thinking that it's something super impactful to get back. I never really found a need for this card. We have cards that are creatures that give all your things in your graveyard a retrace. That seems a little better in my opinion because then you have access to everything. But this card by itself just isn't strong enough for me. I don't know. It's not there. Not doing it for me.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand with the Descend 8, you're gonna wanna like if you were a Descend deck, it would make sense. If you're trying to like continuously pitch the top card of your library into your graveyard with exploring, then maybe you'll get to Descend 8. But this card also for 2 mana wants to be played early, which it probably won't. So you're just sitting on this card for a while till you get Descend 8, so you can actually copy it twice. I don't know. It just seems a bit slow, like you said.
Yeah, it could be a bit of a dead card in your hand, which I'm trying to mitigate dead cards in your hand.
And finally, we did see those two added lands. What ones are we cutting out to make room for them?
I'm cutting out Mosswort Bridge and Simic Growth Chamber. Mosswort Bridge is a land that has Hideaway 4, which means that when it enters the battlefield, you can look at the top 4 cards of your library, exile 1 face down, then put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. This land enters the battlefield tapped. You can tap for a green. You can pay green, tap it. You may play the exiled card without paying its mana cost if creatures you control have total power 10 or greater. Cute. It's assuming that you're going to have a big board with maybe even a couple counters on it. It's just, again, slow and it steals one of your cards, and hopefully you can play it, but I don't know. I never really like any of these hideaway lands, man.
Yeah, there's no guarantee you get that card back.
Yep, and the 2 lands that we're adding in will come into the battlefield untapped, which is always just stronger in my opinion, so it was a pretty easy cut for me. And then Simic Growth Chamber, it enters the battlefield tapped, and when it enters the battlefield, return a land you control to its owner's hand. It can also tap for a green and a blue. So it is a bit of a ramp card, but these are never cards you like to see in your opening hand for one. It'll always enter the battlefield tapped, and then it's kind of like a, I don't know, if unless you just have a bunch of basics to bounce, that's cool, but if you're bouncing something, I don't know. I don't want to bounce a land just to play this for 2. Like, I never like any of these bounce lands, honestly, man.
Yeah, you're kind of stalling your own strategy there.
Yep.
I get why you cut Simic Growth Chamber. I do the same with mine.
Yeah, these are both very Precon centric lands, so it's not too bad to cut them.
Entering taps, never fun.
Nope.
But is that gonna do it? Is that your entire $300 upgrade?
That's it, man. That's the Explorers of the Deep 300.
Perfect. Well, $300 we gave you to upgrade this deck. What is the total amount of money after all of the additions?
At the time of recording this video, if you're taking my 100 edition and then the new cards from this 300, It'll come out to about $290. So just a bit under the $300.
Yeah, that works, man. You nailed it. We got a little under there, so if anyone wanted to add even more spice, but I think you were saying that this deck is pretty powerful just as it is.
Yeah, man. I was definitely struggling because out of the box, the deck is great. It's a really good deck to start just playing with vanilla. And then, once you get a couple plays down, start upgrading it. And yeah, I don't know. This is a great Merfolk deck, man.
Right on. So, did you want to say any final thoughts about the deck itself, how the commander plays and whatnot, before we wrap things up?
I can't say anything more about Hakbal, man. I'm loving him. I have him coming in for myself, and I'm gonna be playing these upgrades. Like, he does so much for you. Like, it's at times kind of shocking because you're like, wait, what? He does this, and like, what doesn't he do? He's great. I love this card. You're gonna have a big board, even if something happens and you get board wiped. He rebuilds so easy, and you're pretty much never gonna really miss land drops. At least I didn't. Like, he's fantastic.
Yeah, man. He is nuts. I've seen him being played. I've played against you in the $100 upgrade video. I'm terrified to play it in the $300 upgrade video. Now seeing all these crazy additions, it is going to be wild.
I'm very excited.
But that is going to do it. If you guys wanted to see the entire deck list of this $300 upgrade to Explorers of the Deep, check the description where you'll find a link to our Moxfield account. And we have a Patreon. If you guys wanted to support us more than you already do just by watching this video, check the description for our Patreon link where we have exclusive content, giveaways, and access to our Discord where you can chat with us whenever. Also, while you're in the description, you will find links to all of our social media accounts. That's Instagram, TikTok, and X at Guys Magic for each one. Like this video if you liked it. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Comment down below, letting Shane know if you liked these upgrades. Maybe he missed one. Maybe he cut something you felt like was really essential to the deck that he probably shouldn't have cut. Always interested to hear your guys' opinion. And until the next video, hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Peace.
Bye bye.